Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Hoist Chain Maintenance and Inspection webinar. Today you'll be learning what type of chain is used in electric and manual hoists. You'll see pictures of deformities and see chains that should be rejected. You're going to learn how to measure out the chain, and last but not least, why lubrication is so important. And just one second. My name is Gisela Clark. I'm the social media specialist at Columbus McKinnon Corporation and will be your host for today's webinar. Presenting today will be Peter Cook, our training manager. Peter, if you don't mind, can you mute yourself just for one more second till I'm done? Thank you. Presenting today will be Peter Cook, our training manager, specializing in rigging and load securement. Peter has dedicated 15 years to Columbus McKinnon as an engineer, designing engineered lifts, slings, and forgings. He's traveled throughout the world teaching proper rigging techniques, rigging gear inspection, hoist and crane inspection, and maintenance. We are recording the session today, and the recording link will be added to our YouTube channel. Everyone in attendance will receive a link to the recording within the next day or two. We have everyone in listen-only mode, so we encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A pane on the right side of your page. We'll take 5 minutes at the end to answer all your questions. So for now, thank you for your attention, and I'll turn the meeting over to Peter so we can begin.
Thank you, and I'll get started. Thank you, everybody, for attending this afternoon. I appreciate your time. So what we're going to go over today is the types and frequency of inspection, so how often you should be looking at your entire hoist, but more specifically your chain, identifying the different types of hoist chain that CMCO uses in their hoist. And then we're going to look over load chain identification, cleaning, inspection, measuring, and lubrication. And if you have any questions at any time, just use your Q&A pane, and we'll also have some little bit of time at the end to do some question and answers. Let's start off with the frequency inspections, and generally it's categorized as two categories. We have frequent inspections and periodic inspections. Periodic inspections don't need records kept. They're visual inspections, usually performed by the operator or other designated personnel. And when we do training, we often teach operators to do this on a daily basis. You know, start looking over your chain as much as you can see, running your hoist, going through your pre-operational checks to see if you can spot any abnormalities. The other type of inspection is called periodic inspection, and these are the records that you need to keep a record of. And this is generally a third-party inspector. Some people do it in-house, but it's a very detailed inspection, and it's a link-by-link inspection. And that's what we're pretty much going to go over today, is that what to do for that periodic inspection, that link-by-link inspection. How often you do that documented inspection is based on the frequency of service, whether you're normal, heavy, or severe. Okay. Just real quick to identify, I don't have a definition written here on the screen, but I'm going to read you off the definition of normal service. And what normal service is uniform loads of less than 65% of the rated load for not more than 15% of the time. So the distributed service with randomly distributed loads within the working load limit. That type of service is categorized as normal, so you would at least have to do a once-a-year documented inspection of that hoisting equipment. If it exceeds that definition I just read off to you, then that is categorized as heavy service, and you would have to do semi-annual or twice-a-year inspections. And then severe inspection is anything abnormal. Could be high heat, maybe like an oceanic environment. I consider sometimes a lot of outdoor use a severe environment if the hoist is remaining outdoors for a long time and really doesn't have any housing or anything for it to rest in. So anything abnormal, high heat, extreme cold, caustic environment, chemical type environment, that would be severe, and that would be your quarterly inspection. So you have to determine, based on how you're using your hoisting equipment, how to step up your inspections and what you're doing. When using CM hoists, we only recommend using the chain that we brand for our hoist and not to use any other chain. Doing so can cause the chain to wear out quickly or the hoist to malfunction. One thing we do want to make note that hoist chain is very different from rigging chains, so we will always recommend using your rigging chains and not your hoist chains for lifting purposes. As far as rigging, the hoist does do lifting, but you do not want to rig with your hoist chain as far as wrapping it around the load. The identification we use for our chains For manual hoist, we use what's known as disc grade chain. That's proprietary to Columbus McKinnon. It's a true hardened chain, and so you'll see that embossing on it, that dot on there. For electric or powered hoists, we use what's known as star grade. We also use this in our air-powered hoist. Star grade chain is extremely hard chain because it runs fast speeds over the lift wheel, so we need that hardness to remain dimensional stability and to hold up in those conditions. In some specialty environments, food grade environments where you need a clean room, things of that nature, we do stainless steel on special requests. We do not recommend you put stainless steel in a hoist that wasn't meant for stainless steel chain. There are some things we need to do special to that hoist to put that stainless steel chain in there. So always contact us if in the event you need to do that with an existing hoist. And then our import uses what's known as a T-grade chain, and what that is, it meets the grade 80 spec of EN 818-7 and is referred to as T-grade. And we put that in our import chain as well as we make that here in the United States as well. So those are the three types of chains. Primarily you're going to see disc and star.
Just a quick question, Peter. What's the difference between hoist chain and rigging chain?
That's a very good question, Gisela. Hoist chain, again, I mentioned about the star. Let's just take star grade, for instance, is a very extremely hard chain because it has to run over fast speeds over lift wheel. So typically, in the event something were to happen, an overload, things of that nature, it would only stretch maybe 3%, if that. Again, we need that dimensional stability, and so it doesn't stretch very much. Also, with its extreme hardness, you don't want to wrap that around a load or a corner or anything like that because it could snap on you. Where the alloy chains are meant for that type of rigging. Now, we always want to use protection when wrapping around corners, things of that nature, but the alloy chain is very durable. It has alloying elements in it to give it its toughness, durability, and alloy chains can stretch about 20% before they break. So in an event of an overload, it would stay a rigger's life. CM chain is typically seeing 27% stretch in their alloy chains. So they're very different chains, and so hoist chain is always meant to remain in line with the hoist and not to be used for rigging. And so we don't want that hoist chain to contact any part of the load. Okay, thanks, Peter. Thank you for that question. That's very important. I do want to make note too that also if you see like grade 80 chain, grade 100 chain, I mentioned you will see hoist chain where some manufacturers will call it a grade 80 or it's grade 100. And all they're referring to is the strength level of that chain. What is not, you have to look for the word alloy, alloy grade 80, alloy grade 100. Those are the rigging chains. And so if you have a hoist where someone calls out, hey, it's grade 100 chain, they are not meaning it's rigging chain. So that I don't want to get that confused with anybody. So first step, if you have to, is to clean the chain. And if you can't visually inspect it, so if the chain has a lot of grease or gunked up, you want to clean it. Solvents that are acceptable for cleaning would be like a distilled petroleum solvent or mineral spirits, but we don't want to use anything caustic. So lubrication, we recommend a bar and chain oil. Sometimes the lubrication will clean up the chain, but don't use any acid substances on the chain, which may, like paint removers. Exposure to hydrogen from inappropriate substances could damage the chain and result in failure during loading at less than its rated capacity. So again, stay away from acidic substances. You know, we recommend, even if it's really dirty, we recommend even a tumbler where we can tumble the chains with leather strapping, things of that nature. Newspaper sometimes work. So those are good ways to clean your chain. So after your chain is cleaned, you want to do a visual inspection. This is a link. This is very important. This is a link-by-link inspection. And where this gets confused is some people think, well, I'm just going to inspect the chain that's used or that I know runs over the lift wheel. And that is not correct. You want to do a link-by-link inspection, and you want to inspect all surfaces. What's really critical is those inner links where they connect. That's where all your wear is going to happen with especially powered hoist. So we're looking for wear in those inner links, nicks and gouges, bent, broken links, heat damage, twisted links, stretching, corrosion, and any type of chemical damage. If anything's causing you concern, and I always tell this, if you're hemming and hawing about something that you're seeing, your best bet is to take it out of service. Okay. Sometimes looking at chain can be very subjective, and it's really up to the inspector. And so if the inspector is, if they don't like what they're seeing, they have every right to take that chain out of service, and they're only being cautious. And so the chain is everything in this hoist. So you want to be sure that it is in good condition.
Peter, a quick question has come up. Someone says they use soda to clean the rust off. Should they stop this?
If it's not caustic, if it's caustic, no, they should stop. But if it's caustic, I'll have to respond back from the plant answer on that, to be honest with you.
Okay, perfect.
But anything caustic we want to stay away from.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Very good question. And maybe I'll learn something too. And so to look at the interleak, you have to slacken the chain. And for manual operated hoist, if we're seeing 10% wear, we want to remove from service. And if powered hoist, 5% wear, we want to remove from service. I typically say this: if you're seeing the wear, you're probably time to take it out. And so especially on the powered hoist, if we get through that hard case step, we're going to accelerate the wear very quickly. The biggest thing you can do to prevent wear, and I'm going to say this many times today, is lubricating your chain. If you lubricate your chain, you're going to prevent a lot of wear. Okay. So let's look at mild to moderate wear. So here, this is a close-up view of the chain, and we're seeing, you can see there, we're seeing some moderate wear. And the case depth of that chain is 10,000 to 15,000, and if the wear has gone through that case, it's going to start to wear even sooner than that, or even faster. It's going to accelerate. And that's, again, due to lack of lubrication is what we're seeing that happening. If you can't use a bar and chain oil like we recommend, something's better than nothing. But a lot of times what people are doing is lubricating the chain. They're lubricating the outside, and it's that inner link that's more important than the outside of the chain. So there, when left, so if you go back and kind of flip-flop through these pictures, so here's a chain, you see the wear starting, and let's just say it was ignored or someone didn't catch it. Then it starts to accelerate, and here's where we're going to have some major problems. It's gone through the case depth, and obviously this is very severe, and this hoist will not be operating properly. You're going to hear a popping sound when it's going over. The chain's going to be jumping in the lift wheel, and we have a very high potential that this is going to break. Okay, so again, lack of lubrication. And if I were just to replace that chain, and I'm going to flip back to that previous example. So if I were just to say, oh wow, look at that, I'm probably just going to replace that chain. You could have damaged the lift wheel by that. By the time it got to that extreme, you could have damaged the lift wheel. So then you see this really, and again, this is extreme, but on the one on the right-hand side, you're seeing this really funky wear pattern. And that's from the chain sliding in over the lift wheel because we've worn out that lift wheel. And again, that new chain that you put in there probably won't be, you'll still be hearing abnormal noises or not be operating properly because it's jumping around that lift wheel because the lift wheel got damaged by that much wear. And so this is another type of wear pattern that you would see on the sides from the chain sliding around the lift wheel. You got to remember, if you put your hands together and as hard as you can and rub them as fast as you can, just like if you were to do it if you're cold, you can't do that for very long. It heats up so much that you start burning your hands. Now think of something under 1 ton going 32 feet per minute over a lift wheel with no lubrication. Extreme amount of heat, extreme amount of wear. Again, lubrication is key. And then here in this picture, you see one link. And how did that happen? One link gets worn like that. And that's kind of strange. And that's why we say do the link-by-link inspection and don't just do the chain that rolls over the lift wheel. So how does something like this happen? Someone may have left a load on the hoist, such as a below-the-hook lifting device or some kind of tooling, and they leave it on there all the time and never take it off the hoist. And so at some point, there's a point where the chain acts as a pivot point or a pendulum effect. So in between shifts, or let's say they're running 1 or 2 shifts, it's just pivoting back and forth on the same link of chain, and it can wear one link out. And so it's important to take any tension or loads off your chain. Sometimes these toolings and lifting devices can be heavy, and it can have that effect, as well as have an effect on the brake as well, the hoist. And here you can see some damage starting of the lift wheel from the chain wearing, and you can see my pointer here, hopefully, and maybe I'll highlight it just to be sure. And so here you can see damage happening here, here, and in here. These leading edges are what is grabbing the chain. So what could happen at this point too is it could introduce a nick or a gouge in the chain as well from that chain being worn. So we just don't want to see it. And I just got to erase. Whoop, there we go. And here what I was talking about, bent, twisted links, stretched links, interlink wear, and then any type of heat damage. And if you see it, you're just going to take it out of service. Let's talk about nicks and gouges.
Excuse me, Peter, really quick, would you mind if I do a quick polling slide?
Oh, absolutely. Go right ahead.
All right. You should see this on your screen now, and if you are working off of an iPad, you will need to send us your comments or your answer via the Q&A pane. Question is, what grade of chain does CM use in its electric hoist? Is it Herc Alloy 800, Herc Alloy 1000, disc grade, or star grade? Again, what grade of chain does CM use in its electric hoist? Herc Alloy 800, Herc Alloy 1000, disc grade, or star grade? And it looks like people are voting between disc grade and star grade. We'll give it another couple seconds. We're at 92% star grade and 8% disc grade. Peter, can you tell us what the answer is?
Absolutely. Star grade chain is the chain you want to use because of its case hard. It's a very hard chain, and so that will hold up for the fast speeds over the lift wheel. The disc grade is for manual hoist.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating there.
Now we're going to get into nicks and gouges, and this sometimes can be, again, a very subjective area for us. And these are nicks and gouges that happen in use. And you see here, if you can picture if you would, like a pool inner tube or anything like that, and if you were to put your foot in the hole and pull on it, so you would see where the plastic would stretch. That would be areas of tension, and then where obviously the blue areas are areas of compression. Now, if we see a nick or a gouge in these areas of tension, that is extremely dangerous, right? Especially if it's cutting across the grain of the steel, because it's trying to pull that open. Versus a longitudinal nick, or it's going in the straight barrels on the area of a compression, you're going to see scratches and things like that, things of that nature happen. And if I saw it longitudinally in an area of compression, it probably wouldn't cause me all that much concern unless it was extremely deep. Now, a lot of people ask, and I'll have another slide showing this, well, how do I know what's a scratch, what's a nick, what's a gouge? And this is where it becomes very, very subjective. Now, we said that the case depth is 10 to 15 thousandths of an inch, so we don't want to get through that case depth. Here's my point. It's hard to measure. No one's going to really try to have to measure this, and we do. This is an engineer. Engineering doctors will say, okay, measure to see if you have this kind of depth. Now, I'm going to use this rule of thumb, and it's the best way I can do for field use. If you can get your fingernail in it, that's a pretty good nick or gouge, and it's not a scratch anymore. So basically, if I can rub my fingernail across it and my finger sticks, that's a pretty good indication that I got a nick or a gouge, and I would replace a chain. And this is where it becomes subjective, because you may have someone argue with you that that chain is okay, that there's nothing wrong with it, but it's your call as the inspector whether you feel comfortable passing it or not. And so that's our criteria, and more than happy to, you can share that slide with them here if you want to. It'll be recorded. You can even show them this presentation. The one big difference between inspecting rigging chains as compared to hoist chains is hoist chain, after you do that link by link inspection, then you have to measure the chain out, and you have specified measurements. You're going to take 12 to 24 inch length of chain, and you're going to go into the inner links, and you're going to try to find a good section of chain. Usually, if you're an electric hoist, on the loose end or where the chain in the bucket, you could take a good measurement of that and record that, either 12 to 24 inches in length. It must be an odd number of chains, and record that dimension. And then you're going to go through and measure the entire length in those similar sections, okay, using a vernier caliper. I've seen some people, they have made their own system up on tables where they put pins and measured the pins out and had it perfect. We also sell a wear gauge, I call it. Looks sort of like a Viking club, what I call it, but it has the same thing, the pins where it's already measured out for you, and you just lay the chain in there. Just be sure you know how to use it right, and how to properly, the instructions come with it. So once you start taking it, if it's a manual hoist and you're seeing a 2.5% difference in length from a good section of chain, you're going to remove from service. And a powered electric or air hoist, 1.5% difference in length, you're going to remove from service. Okay? Or you can go into that particular hoist maintenance manual, and it will also spell it out for you what the length you should be seeing and where you should be rejecting if you want to go by brand specific hoist. Okay? So another step into not just the link by link inspection, but also measuring out. So if you have somebody doing periodic inspections for you and you don't see them measuring out the chain, they're not doing a very good periodic inspection for you. They should be measuring that chain out in increments. And that's a big difference between a frequent inspection and a periodic inspection, is that the periodic is more detailed, it's measured, it's documented, and then that might result in technicians saying, I need to go into that hoist further if I'm seeing extreme amount of wear, or maybe repeating nick and gouge that could be possibly something wrong with the lift wheel. And again, I'm going to keep reiterating this: lubricate, lubricate, lubricate. It is very, very important to lubricate your chain. Do not allow it to run dry. Depending on what type of service it's in, you might have to lubricate it weekly cleaning and lubrication satisfactory. If it's hot, dirty conditions, once a day. I mean, so we see all different types. The worst thing you can do is let this chain run dry. Okay. Again, something's better than nothing. If when we say like a bar and chain oil you would use in chainsaws, or equivalent, graphite, any type of graphite spray, things I'm sure would work, but something's better than nothing. We've done all our testings with the bar and chain oil, and we have gotten great results with that. So that's why we recommend that or equivalent. But you have to get into I can't reiterate enough, you have to get into those inner links. Just spraying the outside of the chain is not really doing anything for you. Some proven methods for lubrication. You can remove the chain right out of the hoist, immerse the chain in the lubricating oil, and then hang them and wipe the excess off, and allow the excess to drip off as well, and make sure that you don't want to have a messy area by putting over-oiled chain in. You can use an oil-soaked sponge and be sure to get in the inner link, so you can do that while operating the hoist and then kind of squeeze. But again, make sure you get in the inner links and you want to wipe the excess off. And some other ways, we can lay it on a hard surface and stack the chain and stripple the oil. There's a lot of different ways. The best way is, of course, the immersing and wiping the excess off would be the best you can do.
Hey, Peter, we have a few questions that have just come in.
Sure.
I'll just do them in the order that they were asked. The first one, is load chain an alloy type material, a different mix than rigging chain, or is it carbon? Seems to confuse a lot of students.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot different than rigging chain. Okay, like I said before, rigging chain an alloy rigging chain by definition, by ASTM standards, has to stretch 20% before it breaks. Okay, so we'll make that distinction. Hoist chain cannot stretch 20%, and we don't want it to, because we would have a lot of suspended loads in the air, and because people do overload, that we would have jammed up hoists. So we don't want that. Hoist chain, typically we're getting 3% stretch, so it can't be categorized as an alloy chain. Yes, it does have, and I use this with caution, alloying elements in it to get its strength and heat treating characteristics, but it is way different than rigging chain.
Okay, a couple more questions. I've seen in the manual where it appears that you measure the outside edge of the link. Is this correct?
Yep, yeah, you want to be consistent in what you're measuring. So some manuals, you can do the inner link like I showed you there, or if you're looking at a manual and the dimensions they're giving you are the outside, basically what it's called is gauging. Our chain measuring stick that we sell actually does that. You actually are putting the chain in between pins, and both ends of the outer link of the chain of that particular segment that you're measuring should never come in contact with both pins. And wish I had a picture of that in this presentation show, but that pretty much does the same thing that way. When you're using most people like to use calipers, so you would have to, obviously it's much more accurate to measure the inner links. But either is acceptable. But if you're going by the manual, then do go by what the manual says.
Okay, Peter, one more has come in. I'm sorry, thank you. Andrew has written us, he's encountered many overlubed chains to the point of dripping. How dangerous is it to the hoist to run an overlubed chain back into the hoist?
For manual hoist, it could be manual hoist. Yeah, you could have a problem because your brake is right there right there next to the lift wheel. So you risk the chance of that oil leaking through on a manual hoist, getting those brakes contaminated. On electric hoist, typically you have in between you have the gears, and so a typical electric hoist would have the gear housing, and then you would have the electrical housing and your brake up in the electrical housing. So you have a housing in between it. So typically it won't really make a big difference in an electric hoist. Whether it's over, it'd be messy, but it probably would never leach all the way through because the gear, you have a gear bath between. You have an oil bath in between.
Okay, perfect.
Does that make sense? Yep.
Yes, I'll see if we get a comment. Yes, he said, yes, thank you, it's indeed messy. Yes. Okay, yeah, and one final question.
Definitely manual hoist you'd have a huge issue with. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Gisela.
No, one more question came in from Scott. Where can we get the chain measuring stick from CM?
We should be able to, everyone on this call, we should be able to have a link to it or something. You can buy it from us, but we'll definitely send that to everybody when I follow up.
Yes, I'll tell you what, in my follow-up email to everyone, I'll include information about how you can get it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's on the website or not.
Okay, we'll provide that information. And at this point, if you type in questions, we'll take them at the end. So please go ahead and continue, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, another part, so we went through the chain inspection. The other part is you want to make sure it's reeved properly, and reeving is how it goes into the hoist and how it goes through the lower blocks. And typically, on most hoists, you're going to see the upstanding link, which is that link standing up, the weld pointing away from the lift wheel. So as it's entering in, you want to be sure the weld is pointing away from that lift wheel. And so we just took a lift wheel out of a hoist to kind of show how what that should look like coming in and out of a hoist. Obviously, it's going to change directions down the lower block, but when it enters into the hoist, that weld, upstanding link, welds, what we call welds away. Now we have a unique one, lift wheel on our Shop Star, or it's Pro Star if you're in the entertainment, and the XL, Lodestar XL, which has an oblique lift wheel, and that you can see there doesn't have an upstanding link. It's a different style type lift wheel, and the weld actually is pointing down. There is a provision. You can actually see it looking at the lift wheel. There's a provision for the weld. So the Shop Star, Pro Star, the SHP, and the Lodestar XL. The Lodestar XL is basically, it's a huge hoist. It's a Lodestar on steroids. It's probably 3 times the size of a standard large frame Lodestar. So reeving is important. And you want to check your lower block and make sure there's no twist. If you have a double reeved hoist, you're looking for any types of twists, and that can happen from the block flipping over. So if you're doing a pre-operational check, you usually catch it. You'll see the block turning violently in different directions, things of that nature, so you want to get that corrected. Sometimes just by flipping the block one way or the other, you can undo it. Sometimes you chase your tail on it, you might have to just take all the chain out and then re-reeve. End stops are important. If you're not using an electric hoist, you're not using a chain bucket, you can get an end stop, or you can anchor it to the chain. In lever-operated hoist, you can see there's the end stop there that you want to be sure you don't. What you're doing is you're ensuring you don't run the chain out of the hoist. Electric hoists, some have lowering limits to prevent that, and we usually want to see that lower limit set. At least leave 8 to 10 links left in your loose end when you set lower limits. And if you're going to use a chain bucket, you do not want to anchor the chain to the hoist. If you're using any chain bag or chain bucket, you can buy, and some hoists even come with it, end stops that you can attach to the end of the chain. But you want to take, you do not want to anchor to the hoist. You want to let that chain just drop into the bucket so that it stacks normally. If you were to anchor to the hoist, it could stack improperly and could spill out of the bucket. So we make sure you don't anchor to the hoist. Only if you're going to use a chain bucket too, only use what's supplied by the manufacturer, and then it's the specified length that's correct for that amount of chain that's in the hoist. Again, we don't want to have an improperly sized bucket and chain to spill out onto the operator.
Peter, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and do another polling slide.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, the question is, what do you do after you visually inspected every link of hoist chain? Measure all chain in specified segments per the manufacturer's instructions. Do nothing, put the hoist back in service. Paint the bottom 3 links red to show it was inspected, or remove flip chain around in opposite direction for even wear. If everyone could vote, then that'll give us some feedback. Great. Oh my gosh, we have 100% consensus at the moment. Okay. Everyone got the right answer, Peter. Everyone.
You want to be sure everyone's measuring that chain, not only inspecting it, but they're also measuring it, because those measurements, the wear can be so slight that if over a number of links, you might not be able to visually see it, and the measurement it'll show up in that measurement.
Excellent. Well, they've been paying attention because we got 100% on that one. Thank you, everyone.
Excellent. And then kind of an offshoot, some hoists have roller chain, and really this is the only slide I have on roller chain. You have different pitches and things like that. So this is the criteria. You want to measure for elongation. You measure 20 pitches, which is 21 rivets, and it has to be less than 12 3/4 inches. And for RC 750, 3/4 pitch, measure 16 pitches, 17 rivets, and less than 12 1/4 inches. You want to look for twist in a 5-foot section. So look at 5 feet, and you're looking for anything twist of over 15 degrees. And then also camber or bow over 1/4 inch, and that's basically if you lay it down and it should not have like a slight wow or a bow to it that's over 1/4 inch, and then you remove that from service as well. So again, that's how if you run into roller chain, I didn't want to mention it here. It's really all the information I have on roller chain. It's not common, but you may run across it. So in summary, let's summarize our chain inspections. The first thing we want to do is we want to watch and listen as the chain runs through the hoisting unit. So if we're doing, that's pretty much our operational check. We're looking for smooth operation in both directions. Any noises, snaps, pops indicates need to be lubricated. And if further review and inspection we're seeing a lot of wear, then we may suspect that something in the lift wheel could have been damaged. Again, nicks, gouges, weld, splatter, corrosion, distortion, or twisted links. The bearing surface between links, its star grade chain has a case hardened depth of 0.015 deep, and replace if worn or close or through the case. And then chain elongation, that may happen through wear or just from overload. So we're going to measure unused section of chain for the number of specified pitch lengths, and then measure chain over live end and various points for stretch. So the entire length, you want to go over the entire length to be sure. Again, this is your periodic inspection. You're not doing this all the time, so you want to be thorough. Replace if you're over whatever specified for the maximum wear for that particular brand. And then lubrication with lubricate bar and chain oil. Something, again, if you can't use that type of oil because you risk it's a very dusty environment and you risk contaminants and things of that sticking to the chain, something's better than nothing. But if you have to run your hoist dry and you can't use any lubrication, that would be another categorized as a severe environment. It's not normal to have dry chain, so you would have to step up your inspection procedures if you could use any lubricant. You would have to really have your operators on the ball looking at things, and your maintenance probably starting off at once-a-month inspections and seeing where you're at, or if not more. So any questions about chain inspections? Anything else? We had a lot of questions, which I really appreciate. It helps me as a presenter get through present when people are asking questions, but feel free to ask any more questions if you like.
Peter, another question has come in. What if I have a condition where lubricating the chain is not practical, or in an area where I don't want to risk any contaminants?
Yeah, something's better than nothing. I've heard of in food plants people using Crisco oil, things of that nature, a dry graphite. Again, if you can't lubricate, then that's categorized as a severe environment, and so your inspection procedures. So you may think it's not severe. Well, I don't have any high heat or anything like that, but it's more I can't have lubricant. Then you got to categorize as severe. It's not normal to operate in that. So you got to step up your inspection procedures.
Peter, can you replay slide 27? Someone
Sorry,
would
I'm
like
going to have to back up here.
No, that's okay. Someone has asked to see it again. There we go. Yes, so I think perfect. Yeah, he just wanted to take a look at that. Okay, and while he's taking a look, another question has come in from Andrew. In the case of lubrication, what about food service? Is high-grade vegetable oil allowable in the case of food service environments? And I know you touched on something just a minute ago, but if you could maybe address his question, that would be great.
I mean, I would think so, but you would have to, whatever that oil is you use, you'd have to get the MSDS on it, and if it's acceptable for that operation. But I would think it would be. Is it edible? Things of that nature, and that, you definitely don't want. I can understand you don't want oil dripping into your food. But yeah, again, the oil is probably not going to work as good as bar and chain oil. So again, it's not normal service, and you would have to step up your inspection. But it's definitely going to, it's definitely going to work a lot better than dry chain.
Okay, and let's see. Okay, another question has come in around, I think it's a question or a comment. It's from Larry. Food service clean room would run stainless and would probably run dry. Larry, maybe you could elaborate that on just a little more, unless you know what he might be speaking of, Peter.
Yeah, well, the stainless, you don't have to worry about the case depth in that case, but with stainless steel, you lower the capacity of your hoist, and you're still going to have to step up your inspections.
Okay. All right. A couple more questions, and then we'll continue to the end. Let's see. When I run into grade 80 chain with a patina of rust, what should I do with it?
You can try, lubricating to see if that rust goes away. That might just take care of it. Tumbling works very well. People use kind of old concrete mixers and tumble the chain with leather straps, things of that nature, and that will clean up the chain as well.
Okay. Is there a chain located in an outside, if there's a chain located in an outside foundry with heat, would that be considered a severe environment?
Yes.
Okay. 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 The question that came in was regarding spices in an environment where they have had extreme chain wear issues from the spices. Okay.
Yeah, it's acting, because what's happening is that spice is acting like it's dust, and so as that chain it's getting into the inner links, and so it's almost it's grinding into the so it's an abrasive, and so yeah, you're getting severe wear from that dust, and so in that case, lubricating the chain that could stick to it. And so they might want to try dry graphite or something of that nature. But again, that's a severe environment if that's happening. It's abnormal. You don't normally have a dusty workplace that's causing that happening. It's abnormal.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. You can go ahead and continue, Peter.
Absolutely. Okay. I don't know if there's more questions. Thank you. We do have blog posts that we go see on blogs. We have good technical information, and you can continue to ask questions on the blog posts. We do write articles that are very good, similar to, I think there is one about chain written by Herb Hart. On there you can go to and search by his name, and a lot of this information I went over today is on our blog post. We do have Twitter, Facebook, where we keep people. You said 6 people sign up today just on Facebook, right?
Yes, that's correct. Love to see it.
So a way of communicating back with us. This is being recorded and putting on YouTube, and we have many informational videos on YouTube that we have done for hoist maintenance and switching power on Lodestar hoist, rigging type videos. And then we're also on LinkedIn and Google+.
Yeah, we love to connect with you all there. I was really tickled that so many of you have RSVP'd on our Facebook page. But do you want to touch on the any classes that are coming up maybe next year, Peter? Was that a slide that you just went over? Perfect.
Yeah,
thank you.
We do offer various classes throughout the year. One is overhead crane and hoist inspection certification, and that's the crane systems where you'll be inspecting, learn how to inspect runways, bridges, hoists, chain, wire rope, but it's the entire system. It's an external inspection of the entire crane system. Then we have chain hoist repair certification, where it is we go over all the hoists that CM manufactures. We tear them apart, all of them, from hand hoist, lever tools, chain falls, and electric hoist and air hoist. And we tear them down and show what to look for, wear items, and then we build the hoist back up and show how to do proper settings for brake gaps and things of that nature. So that is a hoist repair class. And then we have, if you're interested in rigging, we have a qualified rigger workshop coming up at the end of January at our Niagara location, which is very hands-on, 2 overhead crane systems, and we can do just about any type of rigging that you need, or we can mimic it. And then we also offer another chain school coming in Houston, Texas. So we're always, we have our schedule on cmsteeldepot.com. It is up to date through the year 2014. So hopefully you'll come visit us and further your education. This webinar is a tidbit of the information that you're learning. We did this in 30 minutes. You can imagine 3 days, how deep we get into these hoists.
Yeah, and actually on that point, I just want to launch my final polling slide just to see how interested any of you are in becoming a certified chain hoist repair technician. You can just select yes within 1 to 3 months, yes within 3 to 6 months, yes within 6 to 12 months, or you're just not interested. We just like to see. That would be great to get your feedback. Thank you. And for those of you on the call, as Peter said, our schedule for next year is updated, as well as for those of you from the entertainment side, Dave has just posted our entertainment schedule as well for training. So you can check that out. It's live and ready to go for 2014. And thank you. We appreciate you voting and getting a little bit of your feedback here. I'll let that go. So at this point, I don't see any more questions, Peter, so we will go ahead and conclude for today. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for letting me know.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the great question.
And Brad, we will be getting back to you on that question regarding the soda. Peter needs to speak to someone. All right? Thank you so much. Appreciate it, everyone. Thank you so much, and we wish you a very nice afternoon.